Hello. This will be my last critical analysis. For this last one, we discussed ecology. Um, this was our last lecture, but yes, we discussed ecology. Ecology is the economy of nature and the investigation of the total relations of the animal both to its organic and inorganic environments. So the definition that we use in our class is that ecology is the study of relationships, distribution, and abundance of organisms or groups of organisms in an environment. Global warming and deforestation are examples of ecological relationships. We also said that ecology can be organized into a hierarchical pyramid with the biosphere being the base of that pyramid, which the biosphere is a combination of everything, all life, all all non-life, all non-living things. The biosphere is a combination of all of that on our planet. Above the biosphere, you have ecosystems, which are ecosystems are a collection of two related components, biotic and abiotic, in space and time. They can vary from small to large. Um, for example, in a forest ecosystem, its biotic factors are plants, animals, and microbes that inhabit that forest, and then its abiotic factors are things such as the atmosphere, the climate, the soil, water. Um, and then above ecosystem, above on the hierarchical pyramid is your communities, which are an assemblage of species, populations occurring together in space and time. Um, Above communities, you have your population, which is a group of individuals of a species. And then above that, lastly, the most important part of an ecosystem is are the organisms. They're the fundamental units of populations and communities. Um, so yeah, under the category of individuals of organisms, we discuss different types of ecologies. You have behavioral ecology, which studies how behavior affects individuals and their ability to survive and reproduce. An example of behavioral ecology is that of how ducks behave. Ducks are super interesting. They have territorial males and communal females, and then males have different territories. Some are bigger, some are smaller. But the male with the largest area, their largest territory, is the one that is most attractive to the communal females. So those ducks will have an easier time having offspring because the females want to have offspring with the male with the most um, with the largest territory. Um, we also talked about physiological ecology, which is to say how physical factors affect survival and reproduction and other biological processes of organisms. These factors actually include temperature, moisture, and light. They're not limited to those. Evolution ecology is a study of environmental influence on the evolution of organisms. This encompasses a lot of Darwinian concepts. Um, we also have different types of ecologies for multiple organisms. Um, for example, population ecology, the study of how groups of individuals in the same species grow and reproduce. Food availability, competition, and predation can affect population growth. Community ecology is the study of how populations from different species interact to mutually affect each population's growth and survival. Predation is a pretty good example of community ecology. And then you have ecosystem ecology, which is a study of whole living systems with focus on the flow of energy and biomass in large scale living systems. Um, then we also talked a little bit about landscape ecology, which is a study of spatial patterns and underlying mechanisms. And then we briefly covered conservation ecology, restoration ecology, and global change ecology. Um, Following that, we talked about population pyramids. These are graphs that show how populations change over time due to different circumstances. For instance, we looked at a population pyramid over time, um, and like having war be one of the variables that influence that population pyramid. Um, One way that are commonly used is that um, commonly we compare population pyramids from world countries to first world countries, and we see that the first world country population pyramids are relatively even across the age groups, while the third world country population pyramids are they narrow way sooner than they do in the first world um population pyramids. Um we then talked about spatial variation and temporal variation, which spatial variation is how environments differ from place to place based on factors such as climate, elevation, soil, and species. And then temporal variation is how environment is different from time to time. Factors such as seasons, age, and time of day influence temporal variation. Following that, we talked about ecosystemic interactions. A niche or niche is an organism's role in an ecosystem. For example, the lioness's role in her ecosystem is to hunt and provide food for the rest of her pride. Um, Niche competition is when multiple organisms compete for the same role in the ecosystem. And we looked at the example of wolves and wolverines. They and have the same ecosystem compete for the same role. Um, we also discussed energy flow. Um, it goes from to producers to primary consumers to secondary consumers to decomposers. And your producers are gonna be your autotrophs, which are your plants. Um, your consumers are your primary consumers are those that eat your producers. So they're mostly going to be herbivores. So deer, rabbits, insects. Those are your primary consumers, and then your secondary consumers are going to be your carnivores and omnivores. Your carnivores eat strictly meat, so they'll eat those other animals like lions or yeah, most animals like lions or dogs that hunt other animals for food. Um, so like lions will hunt um what zebras. Zebra's a producer. I mean, a zebra is a primary consumer herbivore. The lion's gonna hunt your zebra. That's why I said secondary consumer. Um, and then carnivores eat strictly meat. Omnivores like humans and bears eat everything. They eat meat. They eat plants. They'll eat anything. And then your decomposers, things such as bacteria, fungi, they help decompose. Um, We also discussed symbiotic relationships. Commensalism is when an organism benefits from a relationship while the other organism in the relationship is neither harmed nor benefits from it. It's not affected. Mutualism is when is a relationship where both members of that relationship benefit, and then parasitism is a relationship where one animal benefits from the relationship while the other animal is harmed from the relationship. Um, we then talked about ecological succession, which is a process by which an existing community is gradually replaced by another community. Colonizers and pioneer species are going to be your first species, um, and in an ecosystem. They're the first organisms to inhabit that area. Then, as the area develops a lot more, um, climax community is established, and this is a community that is stable and mature. Lastly, was we discussed human ecology. Um, it views the biological, environmental, demographic, and technical conditions of the life of any people as an interrelated series of determinants of form and function in human cultures and social systems. Group behavior is dependent upon resources and associated skills, and upon a body of emotionally charged beliefs. And that's what we talked about.